Welcome to Monday, the third day of March 2025. Well, what a beautiful weekend. Maybe you drove with your windows down, maybe went out and got a round of golf in, or just did something outdoors. Did it feel like spring. And the weather pattern is acting like spring, but one part of spring in the west is to go the other way. Watch the pendulum swing back and forth, and now the pendulum's going to be going the other way. So hopefully you enjoyed the weekend. Had a lot of spring-like looking clouds out there this weekend. In fact, a lot of cloud photos to show you. Some very interesting clouds that came in over the weekend, especially yesterday. 2 Pacific storms this week. The first one has prompted a lot of winter storm watches and advisories, high wind watches and warnings, and we'll tell you a little bit about this storm. So there's 2 this week. One to start the week, one to end the week. We have very low confidence in this first storm, especially in parts of eastern Wyoming, western Nebraska, and northeastern Colorado. This is not a well-formed storm. It's really not going to get its act together till it gets further east. So we have a lot of watches and warnings out for winter weather, and we'll have it. But I think this first storm is going to underperform in terms of maybe expectations. It's actually, I think, the second storm, which is going to be more impactful. It won't have as much wind with it, but it's going to cover a larger geographic area, and it will spread the moisture out a little bit more evenly over a bigger area, as we'll show you here in a moment. You put both of these storms together, livestock interests certainly need to be prepared, especially if you're in calving and lambing operations. We're going to have much colder temperatures, a lot of wind, and some wetness in some areas. Now we need the wet. And I think there's really good chances a lot of you will see some wetness here over the next 7 days. And really, after that, as the Pacific wave train, it's forming. As we'll show you here in a moment, there are a lot of waves forming that will be coming through Western North America, not only this week, but next week as well. Some beautiful shots out there the weekend of clouds and skyscapes as the fair weather and the high pressure moved in, adding a lot of color to the sky, no matter really where you were across the region. And then we had a lot of photos. A lot of you noticed this over the weekend, especially yesterday. What a beautiful shot here from the northeast entrance of Yellowstone National Park. Mare's tails is what a lot of folks might remember this being named a lot of times, where you get these little wisps that look like a horsetail. These showed up in a lot of places. I think we just had a unique environment where we had that small little upper level low travel across the 4 corners through southern Colorado into Kansas and Texas, and the counterclockwise rotation around that interacting with the wind circulation around the high pressure ridge it was coming under really set up an environment that really made it a nice way to form these mare tails and have these high wispy cirrus clouds like this, and really put on quite a show in the region. So when we take a look at this, Jan Curtis put together a wonderful animation. Thanks, Jan, for doing this. And then there you can see the cloud description, the cloud names on here. First of all, put together a GOES satellite image of the cloud formation throughout the course of the day yesterday. Then that's going to go to a time lapse of the clouds. So notice the direction these clouds are going. And the clouds were lined up perpendicular to the winds aloft. But this spread out over a very large geographic area. And when you take a look at a bigger picture, a wider view of the satellite imagery, you could see these spread out all through the west. So we just had wonderful shots just like that. And you'll see this sometimes if the situation's just right as a storm approaches. We actually had 2 storm systems, that one going to our south, a real small one, and then the bigger one that's now coming in off the west coast. And here it is over the Great Basin. The western vantage point not available this morning, but you can see the low here across the northern Great Basin. Moisture is being brought out ahead of it, but it does have a rather significant dry slot, and you can see that in the water vapor. The water vapor loop showing a strong boundary between the dry air and the moist air on the east side of the low, and as you get closer to the upper level low right here. So this is part of the issue in terms of the low confidence. This drier air is getting entrained in the system as it wants to get itself better organized and head east. So I think this first storm is sort of the sacrificial lamb. It's going to be a potent system, but it's not going to be able to form like some of the bigger March storms do, as you'll see here in a moment. However, it will be impactful over a large area. What we have here, we have red flag warnings in the pink due to very strong winds. New Mexico, southeastern Colorado, and Kansas, the panhandles here, it is going to get extremely windy for you. We have winter storm watches, winter storm warnings in effect. This area in particular, from northeast Colorado into north central areas and southwest areas of Nebraska, this is the area where the storm will be the worst. Blizzard conditions could develop at times with falling temperatures, winds, and periods of heavy snow. It's on the edges of this area where the confidence is very low. We have also winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings for the mountain areas. This is a pattern that's going to bring significant snow to the mountains. We're going to get a really good snowpack boost this week and next week. We have winter storm watches all the way through parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and into the upper plain states. So this is going to bring back winter into the region. For Wyoming, we have winter storm watches for the southeast, winter storm warnings for the southern mountains, and we have high wind watches in effect for this area right here. So this edge area, confidence just is pretty low. I'm going to show you why that is here in a moment. So by noonish today, the upper level low will be southwest of Salt Lake, heading eastward. And then it's going to jump over the Continental Divide tonight and then reform over eastern Colorado by tomorrow morning. That's a classic path for these spring storms to come through, as storms are now starting to track further south. As it goes out into the plains, it tries to get itself better organized by tomorrow morning over northwest Kansas. But I'm going to remove the low pressure symbol here, the upper level low symbol, and show you that the shape of the wind flow around these storm systems is really, really important, especially if you live along the Front Range and you live adjacent to the Front Range. Because if you look at the wind barbs, this shows you what the wind direction is mainly going to be doing aloft and also to some extent at the surface as it comes on through. So the air is rotating counterclockwise in a very elongated shape, north to south around that. So let's zoom in a little bit. So what ends up happening is the low doesn't really have an opportunity to bring an easterly flow because it's elongated. So the wind flow, the mean wind flow pattern looks like this. And for some areas along the Front Range, that's a downsloping wind coming in from the north or at times from the north-northwest. Now a north-northwest wind will bring a better chance of snow to Laramie, but a lesser chance of snow to Cheyenne and some Front Range areas. But as the storm gets better organized, it will concentrate the moisture along this axis right here. So this is the area, this axis is where the snow will be the heaviest and the storm will be the most impactful. And there you can see it on the precipitation forecast. The axis of heavier moisture cuts across Nebraska right here, northeast Colorado, far northwest Kansas. Stock growers and travelers in this area need to be prepared. Now, on the further western edge, the moisture is more scattered, and I think that's what's going to happen. However, on the back edge like this, you're going to get a combination of very strong winds, but a lot of instability. So you can get bands of heavier snow showers that could still form in that area. So that's why you have winter storm watches and warnings in effect for those areas. This takes us through Wednesday morning, and then as it goes out into the plains, it's going to pick up steam as it gets better organized and picks up more moisture. But there is going to be scattered snow across the west with this. It's just that the bigger event is going to be out here on the plains. And you can see that when we look at the combination. I showed you at first the European model. This is what's called the national blend of the models. We showed you this last week. The national blend of the models does want an axis of heavier moisture back over east central Wyoming, but I got a really big question mark if that is going to form or not. I think it will to some extent, but maybe not to the extent this blending of the model shows. But the blending of the models does show that axis right there. So the highest confidence area is going to be here. Now that's storm number one. This first storm is also going to produce rain changing to snow. We're probably got enough instability that these are lightning strikes that could be possible this afternoon. Some instability in there, so that's going to bring you some heavier snow showers. And by tonight, we're going to see a line of thunderstorms across the southern plains and even a line of thunderstorms forming right here in that axis of the better instability. Look at these wind gusts. We talked about New Mexico, the Panhandle, southeastern Colorado. Look at these winds. There's going to be a lot of wind with this storm, reaching back into eastern areas of Wyoming, the Front Range and plains of Colorado. So the really nice weather is going to go south really quick. You may not get a lot of snow, but boy, you're going to get a lot colder and you're going to get very windy depending on where you are at. So that's system number one. It will also produce severe weather. The threat later today and tonight for severe thunderstorms will be developing out here. Then tomorrow, we have an area of enhanced instability and could have some severe weather, tornadoes, a lot of severe thunderstorms down here across the far south. It's that time of year now where we start watching that a little bit more closely. Here comes storm system number two. Notice it's almost where today's system is. Basically, the Pacific is just reloading. Now, this system is going to move slower. It's a little bit put together better, and it's covering a little more real estate, so to speak. And as it heads east, it will bring a pretty good pocket of cold, moist Pacific air through the western United States. And this is the second swath of moisture. So notice it's going to cover more of Wyoming, Utah, along the Interstate 80 corridors of this region, into the mountains of Colorado, the Wasatch, the Uintas, the central and east central plains of Wyoming. You're under the gun as we get into Wednesday night, Thursday, and Friday for storm number two. So this one, at least for this part of the world, second system is going to be the more impressive one, but it will also produce another swath of snow across Nebraska into western Iowa. And we can really keep our fingers crossed and hope this area can pick up some more moisture out of these storms. Now, it's going to be inconvenient, but you're not going to get a nice, gentle, steady rain in the month of March. If you're going to get March moisture, this is how you get it. So these are the two systems. This will mean a much different scenario this week weather-wise. Then there's more reloading. This is by next Tuesday morning. Generally speaking, the weekend coming up is going to be pretty quiet as we get into late Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and probably Monday. But by Tuesday and Wednesday, another wave is going to come through. That's followed by another wave, this one around the 14th and the 15th. So this will be two storms next week. One around Tuesday and Wednesday, another one around Friday and Saturday. If we were to maybe identify a storm that has more potential to be bigger for Front Range and Plains areas, it'll be this storm right here. And then you can see the wave train is lined up. And if we go and take a look at the 300 millibar or 30,000 foot wind forecast over the Pacific, you see a lot of red, you see a lot of yellow. This goes over about a 14-day period. So you can see the Pacific, across the Pacific, here's Japan, here's the West Coast. There is a lot. There's a lot of jet stream energy. It's moving west to east across the Pacific, then generally ending up across western areas of North America. This takes us all the way through St. Patrick's Day and may continue even beyond that. So we're starting something different, so there'll be plenty to talk about in the days ahead. Have yourself a good Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.